Justice Department is charging a 19-year-old Minnesota man for allegedly trying to join ISIS. He's the latest in a long list of young men in the Twin Cities area who have been radicalized and have joined terror groups. It's a serious problem that has perplexed local community leaders now for years. CNN's Brian Todd is here in the Situation Room. He's been investigating what's going on. Brian, what are you finding out?
Wolf, 19-year-old Hamza Ahmed is charged with providing material support to ISIS. We spoke to the U.S. Attorney in Minnesota, who told us this case represents a very ominous pivot in terrorist recruitment in that area, where ISIS is now targeting young Somali Americans, displacing a dangerous al-Qaeda affiliate.
Moments before takeoff at New York's JFK airport, Hamza Ahmed was grabbed by federal agents, escorted from his plane. Law enforcement officials say he'd taken a bus all the way from Minneapolis to catch a flight to Turkey with a lethal goal in mind.
He's charged with trying to join ISIL to fight with terrorists.
Ahmed's lawyer won't comment. A law enforcement source says the 19-year-old posted these tweets saying he wanted to become a jihadist and, quote, be a martyr. Ahmed is a Somali American from Minneapolis. The U.S. attorney there tells CNN they believe he represents a dangerous shift in terrorist recruitment.
We think that ISIL has pretty much picked up on the successes, to use that phrase, that al-Shabaab had, and improve upon it and try to recruit more young men and some young women from the Somali community in Minnesota to join ISIL.
Al-Shabaab, the vicious al-Qaeda affiliate in Somalia, had previously recruited around 24 Somali Americans in Minnesota to fight with them inside Somalia. Young people who'd shown so much promise, like Jamal Bana, a handsome 20-year-old engineering student. After he left home mysteriously, his parents saw a picture of him on the internet, dead in the streets of Mogadishu, a bullet wound to his head. CNN has investigated these cases for more than 5 years. Somali community leaders are still frustrated.
We are still losing them. Is it a terrorist hotbed in Midwest here in the United States? It is.
Why? Community leaders tell us it's a lack of opportunity and identity.
Most of these kids are torn between two cultures. You know, they're Americans, but they're not necessarily, they don't feel totally accepted as Americans. They know they have a Somali history. Many do not have a father.
The fear? What happens if these young men with U.S. passports return to America?
There is a concern that the minority of returnees who do come back, become involved in terrorism, are also the most dangerous terrorists.
U.S. Attorney Andrew Lugar denies that Minneapolis is a terrorist hotbed. He says he's fighting back with outreach programs, getting young Somalis into sports competitions, helping them get jobs. But Lugar and other officials may have to work through another problem. Law enforcement sources and analysts tell us many people in the Somali community don't trust each other. There are different factions, rivalries between Somali community leaders. Establishing trust between them, getting them to trust outsiders from the government, those are huge challenges in trying to fend off terrorist recruitment in Minneapolis. Wolf.
Brian, why did so many Somalis actually come to Minnesota, pick Minnesota as an area where they wanted to settle?
It's an interesting question. A Somali community leader told me they first came in the early 90s as the civil war in their country was raging, and that the first few of them came because they got jobs in a meat processing plant in Marshall, Minnesota, just west of Minneapolis. Then word got around that there were job opportunities there, but they also came because Minnesota offered housing, social services that many other states didn't have, and this leader told me that many of the people who first came were single mothers.